Hey, great to see you. It was a beautiful day out there today. Saturday, actually, the Sabbath day. And listen, hey, if you're in the mood for it or if you're available, I want to talk about it, I want to listen. I want to talk to you about a very interesting guy. I think he is, anyway. Interesting story. And that's Joseph. Joseph in the Bible. Actually, he was the Joseph with the coat of many colors. And I think there was a musical put out about him called, what was it, Joseph in the Technicolor coat or something else like that. But he was a very astute, interesting character. But God had plans for Joseph's family. He didn't just have plans for Joseph's family. He had plans for the chosen race or his chosen people. And that's okay to choose a group of people and make them the chosen people and let them become the light of the world so other people can learn from them. And that's the plan. So Joseph's family at the time that they joined him in Egypt was about 170 people. That's not many. And it ended up being millions, I believe, ultimately. Well, it is today, obviously, because the Hebrews, they're the Jews, But I'm saying they ultimately ended up being, a lot of people, probably a couple of million or whatever it was, in Egypt as slaves. And God doesn't necessarily make things bad, but he capitalizes on them. So like, for example, when Lucifer, for example, who was a top angel in heaven, when he rebelled against God, and had to be cast out of heaven, God capitalized on that situation by introducing him into our marketplace, into our lives. So therefore, we could become greater beings because of the temptations that we receive from Satan and his fallen angels if we overcome those temptations. So he uses everything to his advantage. I mean, God's omnipotent. He can't be beaten. He's always existed, always will exist. And Satan, by the way, compared to God, doesn't compare. He's nothing. And neither am I, and neither are you. Compared to God, we're really nothing. That's the truth. Satan is actually a significant being compared to us. He is in the angelic realm, so he's a significant being, but compared to God, he's nothing. So if you wanted to compare a grain of sand, for example, to the entire universe, that could be a starting point, with Satan being a grain of sand and the entire universe is God. So don't let's get too carried away with Satan. He's nothing, actually. And his God made hell for the devil and his angels. So they are ultimately to be destroyed in hell. That's what's going to ultimately happen to them, and actually they know it, but obviously they must try not to realize it, try not to think about it too much, try and pretend from time to time it's not going to happen, just as a lot of us do. We don't like to think about our impending demise, when we will no longer be around, when God will, our number will be up, so to speak, and we'll be 6 foot under, pumping up daisies, whatever, So we don't like to think about it all day long, because it's not a particularly wonderful, pleasant, enjoyable thought, is it, necessarily, for most people. So therefore we don't think about it, and neither does Satan think about his eventual demise, where he's going to be completely destroyed in hell. And it says, I think in Ezekiel or Isaiah, something like that, it says that he will be ashes under our feet. So that's his ultimate destination. That's ultimately what's going to happen to him. But in the meantime, he's trying to take as many with him as possible. Anyway, coming back to Joseph. So God knew he needed to, before he even made the human race, he knew how it was all going to go. He didn't manipulate. He didn't actually make it go the way it went, although he capitalized on events. But he knew how it was going to go. And he knew that a savior would be very necessary, and the savior would have to be himself, God, in the form of man. He knew that before he even made us. So he had to prepare the way for the savior to be received, which was Jesus Christ. And he had to create a godly nation, a nation that believed in God, understood God, obeyed God, and all that kind of stuff. When they were on point, when they were doing the job properly, when they were being good, that's how they were. And the Jewish nation became that way. So God looked ahead and he saw, okay, there's this band of people, about 170 odd people or whatever it was, thereabouts. Probably would have been much less than this when Joseph first went into captivity. But this is how it started with Joseph. His brothers became jealous of him, and Isaac, I think his father was called Isaac. Pretty sure it was. His father didn't really help matters because he spoiled Joseph a little bit and got him a coat with a whole lot of colours. And although Joseph's mother was a different mother to the brothers that were jealous of him, and these brothers turned against him. And he was a young man at the time when it actually happened. You know, he was relatively young. I think he was a late teenager or something like that, you know. And I think when he realised, well, first off, they were going to kill him. And I think that was a shock. Obviously, that was a shock. He never expected that his brothers, he might have recognised they're a bit jealous of me, or they might be a bit cheesed off that I've got a bit more favour with the old man, with Dad, than the rest of them. But I don't think he ever expected them to kill him. I think that was kind of like a real wake-up call. He probably even thought, if he was a teenager, he might have thought, they like me. They like me. Actually, they didn't like him. And so he paved the way in order for the Jewish race to be saved, to grow the Jewish race. God actually wanted the Jewish race to go to Egypt. He wanted them to grow into a large body of people, but he also wanted them to go, and he was happy for them to go into slavery. He knew that was going to happen before they went there. And he knew that them being in slavery for a long time would also do a lot. It does help a lot sometimes, you know. I mean, it's not everybody wants to be a slave, but it has a work, doesn't work. I mean, there's a bunch of things that do happen when a nation is in slavery, and it can be beneficial. Excuse me. So here's Joseph. His brothers decide to kill him, and then somehow, some way, through a series of events, he doesn't get killed and he gets sold off into slavery. Now he ends up in Egypt, where he's sold into slavery. And he's in this difficult situation. Like, he can't say to the people that he ends up working for, a guy called Potiphar, actually. His name was Potiphar. He couldn't say to Potiphar, well, actually, the reason why I'm here is my brothers hated me so much, they were going to kill me. But at the last minute, I got spared, and luckily here I am, and I got sold off as a slave. You know, yippee-ki-yo, right? No, that didn't happen. So he had to keep that to himself, didn't he? He couldn't actually go around saying, my family hated me so much they sold me off into slavery. He couldn't tell anybody that one. He had to keep that, you know, under his shirt, so to speak, up his sleeve. So here's Joseph, and he's actually very capable. You know, he does such a good job for this guy Potiphar, who he's contracted to be a slave for, that, you know, Potiphar in the end just lets Joseph completely run the show. You don't have to ask Joseph anything. You don't have to tell Joseph anything. Doesn't have to tell Joseph what to do. Joseph is just such a capable, brilliant young man. He can do it anyway. And anyway, along that journey, his Potiphar's wife was probably getting a bit cheesed off, right? There's Potiphar, like, you know, King Creole, like King Farouk, like Mr. Somebody, and he's got this, you know, Joseph guy running around doing everything for him, and he probably, his wife, if depending on what type of woman she was, but I suspect this is what she was, she probably felt a little bit sort of not quite so important, you know, and she really wanted to maybe get Potiphar back, right? I think that's really that was really all about, because she tried to make a move on Joseph. She tried to get Joseph to sleep with her, to go to bed with her, to have sexual intercourse with her. And because Joseph was a very wise guy, and even if he wanted to, he wouldn't have, because he knew the ramifications and how it was all going to be bad news. But he didn't even really want to. You know, he was a God-fearing person, and he recognized, no, this would be wrong. This would be a sin against God, and it would also be a sin against Potiphar, and he couldn't do it. And so, you know, he did flee from that situation, but as he did so, she managed to grab his garment. I guess it was some kind of garment he was wearing. I don't know what it was. Might have been a small skirt or whatever it was those guys wore in those days. And she started yelling and screaming that Joseph had tried to rape her, right? And so this is a difficult situation for Potiphar. He sizes up the situation. We weren't there, but we're allowed to think, right? We're allowed to consider, hey, this is what was the real deal here? What happened? He actually knew that Joseph was honest. He knew that Joseph was real, right? He knew Joseph was authentic. He knew Joseph wasn't sneaky, nasty, or any of those kinds of things. He knew Joseph was a decent guy, right? So when she accused him of raping her, you know, Joseph would have pleaded his innocence, and he would have said to Potiphar, hey, look, trust me, I would never do anything to you like that to you in a million years, Potiphar. You know, you're my I would never ever do it. Your wife is unjustly accusing me. He probably put it all together and thought, okay, she put the hard word on Joseph. Joseph didn't go for it, but I can't go for having Joseph still be in my employ, because that's going to kind of completely wreck my household with my wife saying that he raped her. So he's going to actually have to go down, right? And so Potiphar, if you read the story about Potiphar, he was already in the jailing business somehow. He was kind of like in the police system or the jail system of Pharaoh, and he engineered it that Joseph went into a jail whereby he wasn't going to be absolutely persecuted. If you read the scriptures, you'll actually see that. And Joseph goes to jail, and he does the same thing at jail as he did for Potiphar. He ends up running the show. He's very capable. He helps out. He does everything. He's just one of these kind of on-the-ball, capable kind of guys, willing, got lots of alacrity, keen and willing to serve and all that sort of stuff. And because he's had these dreams, and he's a dreamer. He's actually pretty good at, he's an interpreter of dreams, but he's had a lot of dreams, and he's in the situation where he's now in jail, and because in his dreams he's been shown in his dreams that he's going to really become somebody. Things are going to work out really nice for him. So he's with Potiphar doing a terrific job of thinking, somehow, some way, this is going to lead to my success. I'm going to get off the hook. I'm going to get my freedom, whatever. He's probably thinking something like that. And then he goes from bad to worse. He gets thrown in jail. There's nobody there to see him, nobody there to extricate him. There's nobody there to sort of do something for him. He's actually he's in the pits, really, Anyway, he kind of thinks his lucky break has come when the jail receives two prisoners, and they work for Pharaoh. And one is the baker, is called the baker anyway. He probably was involved with all the baking and cooking and all that sort of stuff. And the other one was his steward, his wine steward, was involved with all the vino, all the wine, all that kind of stuff. And they're both in jail for stealing, because they'd been nicking stuff off Pharaoh, putting it out the back door, selling it to their friends, making money, right? And they're both caught, and they're both in jail. And anyway, so that was the story. Anyway, one morning or one day when Joseph is doing his rounds in the jail and all that kind of stuff, he knows these two guys, both looking not very happy. And so he inquires, what's the problem? You guys don't seem so happy. What's happening? And they said, well, we both had dreams last night, and quite disturbing. He says, oh, okay, really? He said, well, tell me the dreams. So they told him the dreams, and Joseph interpreted the dreams for them. And the full dream is explained in the scriptures. But in the dream, he says to one guy, he says, what's going to happen to you is you're going to get hung, and you're going to be killed for your crimes. And he said to the other guy, whatever he was, the steward or the baker, whatever he was, he said, you're going to be pardoned. And anyways, that's exactly what happened. So Joseph said to the guy that was pardoned, he said, hey, remember me to Pharaoh when you get in there, when you get out of here. Tell him I'm an innocent man, I shouldn't be here, and that sort of stuff. So he thought that was his big lucky break. But actually, nothing happened.